In this video, you'll learn how to make passive income with $1,000, and I'll divide it into two parts. The first is I'll reveal the great truth about passive income. In the second, I'll give you 3 passive income methods, one easy, one medium, and one difficult. That's it, and I'm going to invite you now to subscribe. Thank you very much. So, well, what's the great truth about passive income? Passive income can keep ordinary people broke, and it can kill your shot at building real wealth. Here's why. To make passive income, you need previous money, and you get that previous money by working hard or being an heir. But if you're an heir, like in HBO's Succession, I don't know why you are watching this video. Want one more uncomfortable truth? Most passive income strategies are a trap. Like, they teach you how to build an online business, sell ebooks, things like that, but they forget that this involves work. A lot of it, even if you use AI. So that's not passive. I became a millionaire working in finance, and then a multi-millionaire with a YouTube channel. I've sold info products, courses, mentoring, and all of this took a lot of work. A lot indeed. I worked less as a regular worker than trying to make it big and build a great company. The real secret? Reconcile your passive income building with active income building at the same time. I usually say that I didn't become a multi-millionaire by investing, but I'm sure that investing made the process much faster. Just because investing pays little in the long run doesn't mean you'll stop investing, you know? Because in the future, it will be very important. Using myself as an example again, I made a lot of money, but I could have let it sit and spent it without generating any passive income. The thing is, at first, I used to buy a juice box with a passive income, then it became an energy bill. Now I can live really comfortably without ever working again. I choose to work because I have a big purpose in life, and I'm ambitious. If I had given up back when it was generating a few dollars for me, today I would have no assets. I could even buy it, but do you understand that I would have lost everything I've accumulated in interest since I was 18? Okay, but let's cover some passive income methods, and I'm hoping you use this while you make money working to increase your contributions. The easiest method is the passive income by savings accounts and bonds. I won't even elaborate on this one. It's straightforward, and honestly, I don't see it as a full strategy on its own. For me, the perfect approach is when you combine bonds and savings accounts with the market. That balance gives you safety, liquidity, and growth at the same time. But let's get to it. If you take $1,000 and put it only in a high-yield savings account today, you'd get around 4 to 5% a year. That's about $40 to $50 after 12 months. Not much. If you go with US bonds, depending on whether you buy short-term treasuries or something like the 10-year, you're looking at a yield close to 4.5 to 5% annually. Same story, your $1,000 becomes about $1,045 to $1,050 after a year. Safe? Yes. Life-changing? No. Over 10 years, reinvested, that $1,000 would grow to something like $1,500 to $1,600. It protects your money, it fights inflation a little, but it doesn't build wealth. That's why I say this method is fine for your emergency fund or the defensive side of your portfolio, but if you want serious passive income, you have to go beyond this. So the medium difficulty is passive income by the stock market. First of all, if you only have $1,000 or less, you shouldn't waste time chasing dividend-paying stocks. Why? Because the companies that pay 6 to 8% dividends usually don't deliver massive long-term growth, and you're not ready to retire yet. You want to build wealth, so growth is what you need. Look at Nvidia. It's one of the fastest growing companies of the decade. Dividend yield 0.04%. Basically nothing, and yet anyone holding it made a fortune because of growth, not dividends. It's the same story with funds. Compare VDIGX, which focuses on dividend companies, with VTI, the total market fund. The gap is huge. VTI is the benchmark. It's what dividend funds try to beat and almost never succeed. My approach is simple. Forget dividends. Focus on growth. If you want the simplest and laziest method, the best ETF you can hold for decades is VTI. Buy it, leave it, and let compounding do the work. And if you want to go one step further, just add VIXIS for international exposure. That's exactly what I tested. A portfolio with 50% VTI and 50% VIXIS. Here's what happened. If you had put $1,000 in 2016, by August of 2025, you'd have about $2,773. That's a 177% total return, about 11.1% per year. Nearly 7 out of every 10 months were positive. The best year, 2019, up 26%. The worst, 2022, down 18%. But the compounding crushed through every setback. That's the power of keeping it simple. simple. Just 2 ETFs. Global diversification, double-digit annualized returns, and peace of mind knowing you're basically betting on the world economy. All right, but let's say you want something with more return. You want to try to beat the market and make your life a little bit harder. Here's the portfolio. 25% VTI, 25% VXUS, 25% NVIDIA, and 25% Tesla. Now watch this. If you had put $1,000 in this portfolio back in 2016, today you'd have more than $31,365. That's a 3,000% return. On average, about 42% per year. Crazy, right? Of course, it wasn't a straight line. The best year was 2020, when it went up more than 200%. But the worst year was 2022, when it dropped almost 40%. That's the cost of chasing big growth. You get monster returns, but you also have to stomach brutal crashes. We're not playing around anymore, and the income isn't so passive anymore, because now you'll have to study and keep an eye on the stocks. But what did people actually see back then to believe Tesla and NVIDIA would blow up like this? Let me give you a few real cases. Take Steve Jurvetson, one of the earliest Tesla investors. He wasn't chasing short-term numbers. He bet on the vision that electric cars and renewable energy would disrupt the world. His tip was simple: back founders with huge ideas and the ability to execute even if the risk looks insane. Now look at NVIDIA. Some ordinary investors nailed it early. Jim Woods bought in 2000, Mark Hatala in 2002, and Matthew Harris in 2018. They saw GPUs getting more important, first in gaming, then in data centers, and finally in AI. None of them had a crystal ball, but they had patience. They held through years of volatility, and that conviction turned into life-changing returns. And even big hedge funds like Dan Loeb's Third Point eventually made the switch. In 2023, he went heavy into NVIDIA, Amazon, and TSMC after realizing he had missed the early AI surge. His lesson: when you see a trend hit critical mass, like AI transforming everything, it's not too late to increase your exposure. What do all these people have in common? They weren't chasing dividends. They were spotting big shifts, EVs, AI, chips, and betting on companies that could dominate those spaces. They had conviction, they held through pain, and they diversified so one wrong bet wouldn't kill them. That's how some people actually got Tesla and NVIDIA right. Not luck, not magic, just connecting the dots before everyone else. So I think the key here is to not get hung up on the numbers first. First, you look at the market. Which sectors are growing? What will thrive in the long term? What will die in the long term? Then you map out the companies within the fields that will grow, and only then do you look at the numbers to separate the good companies with strong fundamentals from the bad ones. Now, the last and hardest method is passive income through crypto. I bet you've never thought of it this way. Here's how it works. Some cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, Solana, or Cardano run on a system called proof of stake. Instead of miners burning energy like Bitcoin, the network is secured by people who lock up their coins. That's what we call staking. Think of it like putting your coins in a vault. The blockchain uses them to keep everything running, and in return, you get paid rewards, kind of like interest. Depending on the project, that can be anywhere from 3 to 15% a year. On $1,000, that's $30 to $150 without doing anything. Sounds incredible, right? But here's the catch. The risks are way higher. The token itself can crash 50% in a single year, and if you stake on a shady platform, you can lose it all overnight. That's why I call this the hardest method. It's not just about earning yield, it's about betting on which blockchain will still exist 10 years from now. If you're right, you can make serious money. If you're wrong, you can lose everything. But let me show you how it actually works. Log into a reliable platform like Binance and look at Solana. When you stake Sol there, you get something called BNSOL, basically your staked coins plus the rewards. The average yield is around 5 to 7% per year. So let's run the numbers. If you staked $1,000 in Solana at a 5.7% APY, you'd have about $1,057 after 1 year. Leave it compounding, and in 5 years, you'd be close to $1,319. No trading, no stress, just rewards dripping in. But here's the twist. Those rewards are paid in Solana itself. If the price of SOL doubles, you're your yield becomes even more valuable. But if the price crashes, your dollar value crashes with it, no matter how many coins you earned. And the yield isn't fixed. It changes based on how many people are staking and how the network is performing. Plus, platforms like Binance take a small cut. So yes, staking Solana or other proof-of-stake cryptos can give you passive income, but it's not risk-free. The real challenge isn't staking, it's having conviction that Solana will actually be worth more 5 years from now. To be quite honest, I don't use this method. The risks don't fit my style. I think it can deliver excellent returns, but I prefer the traditional market. It's been giving me consistent results. I see this method as more valid for people who truly understand and genuinely enjoy the crypto world.